Welcome to Inside Government. We're coming to you live from Broadcasting House, and I just want to tell you something. You see, yesterday, the President of the Republic of Kenya launched its first artificial intelligence strategy, which is going to guide the growth of this critical sector in the next 5 years. This is one of the many initiatives by Kenya to try and leapfrog its innovation as well as ICT sector. Well, we have an institution called the Kenya Innovation Agency, whose business is to harness innovation in this country. And they have been holding the annual Innovation Week for the last how many years? I'll just let you know. And that's what we want to discuss this afternoon. We want to look at the issues of innovation and, of course, how to harness innovation and how to deepen innovation in the Republic of Kenya. We just want to have a deep-seek moment. Oh, yeah, that's the kind of conversation that we're going to have here. I'm joined by three very important people. The CEO of Kenya Innovation Agency. This is Dr. Tony Omwansa. He's just in the middle. Thank you very much, Dr. for joining us here.
Thank you very much for having me.
And of course, on my extreme left, we have an innovator. He's a young innovator. He's a product of the Presidential Innovation Program as well as Kenya Innovation Week. This is Eli Savatia. He's here to explain to us the process of innovation, how he innovated, and where he is now. Thank you very much, Eli Savatia.
Thank you.
Very good. And on my immediate left, we have Professor Wachira Muthengia. He is a professor at the University of Embu. He's also an innovator, and also he's also in the academia. So we have the academia, regulation, as well as innovation right here. Thank you very much, Prof, for joining us.
You're most welcome.
I just want to start, first of all, by getting to hear from Dr. Tony Omwansa. When you look at the state of innovation in Kenya and when you consult the world intellectual property, Kenya is ranked as position number 87. That is not a pretty place to be. We pride ourselves as the Silicon Savannah of Africa. What are we not doing right?
Thanks very much, O'Brien, for hosting me. And you know, I've been here several times, and I'm sure you've seen the passion and the excitement with which we pursue this agenda. Now, ranking is sometimes subjective. It may probably sometimes not reflect the accurate position. I've spent some time on addressing the issue of Global Innovation Index, and I've come to a conclusion that is a good chunk of the data that never gets submitted for one reason or another. And so, because we're not very effective, so then the ranking tends to end up bad. But nevertheless, that's also not to say we are top in the world. It also to admit that we do have a lot of ground to cover. And part of where I think we have a lot, and we will be demonstrating that today, is there is a lot of research outputs that has a lot of commercial value, but never gets supported appropriately to find its way to market. And once we start filling that gap, and we will show you exactly how we're filling that gap, those numbers are going to go up.
Yeah.
There are a lot of young entrepreneurs who have come up with innovative ideas, so probably don't get as much support, or they're not as visible. And we are gradually filling that gap as well. So when the true picture comes out, I think we will be doing as good as we portray ourselves to be. Yeah.
I want to hear this from you, Prof. He's talking about us not doing enough to ensure that the kind of innovation coming out of this country, and of course the kind of data that is needed for us to get proper ranking, is not given on time. Why do you think this is happening?
I think, as he said, as Tony has said, we do have a lot of research that is being conducted both at universities and the higher education sector, as well as a number of research institutions in the country. But unfortunately, what we have is we are not able to broadcast ourselves as it's supposed to be. We really don't have a cleared inventory of the research that we've already conducted as at the various institutions. As institutions, we need to talk about what we are doing. We need to avail the data of what we are doing. We need also to move not just from research to publications, or research to theses, or research for purposes of academia. We need to move our research to the level of it being commercializable. We need to see the business acumen from our research. And that's exactly the agenda that Kenya is actually driving for the country. So it's going to be a bit slow for now, but we expect in the very near future for it to come up very fast.
And the most unfortunate thing is that, technology keeps on changing, on a daily basis. And so if you sleep a little bit, then you sleep.
Yeah.
And so how then do we accelerate that process of ensuring that we don't get too much behind?
I think, as we always say, is that, and you've rightly put it, that if we sleep today, tomorrow we'll not be able to catch up. But the most important is always to be always in tandem with what is happening in the world. If we are able to advance technology today, let's test it real time. Let's not just have it in our libraries. We should be able to go to the market and ask ourselves, is this able to resolve? Then secondly, we should be able to ask ourselves, are we really having technology that addresses what is happening in the current world? Are we really resolving challenges that are affecting common mwananchi? That's the most important, because if you have a technology that does not resonate with the common mwananchi or the mwananchi's problem, then your technology is as good as dead.
As an innovator, and as a young innovator for that matter, and you represent the majority of the people that we have in this country. Because when you look at our demographics, I mean, you're talking about between 15 years all the way to 35. They are the majority in this country, and that's where you fall. How would you describe the state of innovation in Kenya as an innovator yourself?
The state of innovation in Kenya, what can I say about it? So I think looking at over the last decade, over the last 20 years, and products like, say, M-Pesa from Safaricom, I think looking at the success, because I think that story started from a young person, looking at the success that we've seen from developing such products, I think it's ignited this possibility that young people can see innovation, science and technology as an area where they can even create livelihood, right? And I think finance mechanisms have also been introduced by the government. One that I would talk about is, of course, the Kenya National Innovation Agency, the Presidential Innovation Award, which has ideally amplified some of the innovations that we're having coming across most of the counties in Kenya to move from idea, get the mentorship that can take you, from just a simple idea to selling, to market, and, what happens post-market investment. So I think there is a lot of hope if we are talking of young people really playing that key role when it comes to, say, driving digital, transformation, or, big issues like climate, healthcare. And I'm very optimistic about the future and young people being a pivotal player in that.
But you're talking about hope.
Yes.
And in business, we say that hope is a very bad strategy.
Yes.
And optimism will never take you anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to get down and do something. We are in a country whereby there is so much energy, especially with the young people. They have gone to school, they're doing so much, and especially in the social media space. But we also live in a country where we're faced with tremendous challenges. I mean, issues to do with health, food security, security issues, unemployment. Why aren't we seeing young people being part of this solution through innovation?
Young people are actually being a part of this, and I am one of them. So, like, for example, what we do at Signverse, right? We've identified a problem for people with hearing disability, and we've developed software that can, interpret, text-speech to sign language seamlessly, and I'm just part of more than 100 others that I personally know. I graduated from the Presidential Innovation Award group. We were more than 38 of us. And I like that move that the Kenya National Innovation Agency has ideally started to start recognizing most of these innovations, because they do exist. But what's missing, I think what has missed before, was how, I think the big question would be, how do we basically bring them and put a limelight on them? Then how do we now support them from ideas to innovation. So I wouldn't say they're not there. Young people are actually innovating out here. Yeah.
Are they being felt in the right way?
I think so. Yes, I would say yes, because generally I think the current era we are living in right now, we're living in the digital era, and there's lots of opportunities that we can leverage online. I think there's a lot of grant opportunities that can help, from prototyping, to development. I genuinely think that support systems are there. Then we need more hand-holding post that initial supporting. How do we create ecosystems that can even bring finance mechanisms post, seed financing? Yeah, because I think the reality is that when you have an idea, you need to take it from 0 to 1. Yeah, but again, you need money to scale it from that initial product to something that's usable. That fuel that can, ideally drive it from 1 to 6. I would say.
And the issue here is funding.
Yeah, funding. Funding plays a very big role.
And that's where then we bring on board the CEO of Kenya.
Yes.
I mean, this young man is talking about moving innovations from an idea into, something something that you can see, something that you can feel.
Yeah.
I know you are in the process of establishing a startup fund. Where are we in terms of this?
Thanks very much. You've articulated the issue of funding, and as much as there are several other issues that we look into for us to move this idea from that concept level to an enterprise. But let me speak a little more in the context of that funding. To answer the question exactly, the head of state pronounced himself in November last year that he is willing to allocate about 1 billion for a startup fund that the innovation agency will run. We've gone through the motions of designing how would that fund work, including the kind of instruments that we would need, because it's not a one-size-fits-all. So a young person somewhere who is testing something probably needs a grant and might need up to 500,000 maybe, and so on and so forth. There is somebody who is in frugal innovation in a village and is creating something, so we're creating a specific instrument for them. Another category is that we realize people who have already developed an idea, now they need investment. But sometimes private sector or investors may not jump at it until they feel that it is well de-risked and they are well protected. So we are designing a matching fund, which means as an agency, we can put in 5 million on condition that we get another private entity that will put in 5 million, and they bring in the expertise over and above the funding. They bring in the expertise of scaling a business. We have an R2C grant. We're looking at researchers who are creating meaningful commercial value solutions, and then we inject. So we've created about 6-7 different kind of instruments. Now, the financial year, by the time the head of state made his pronouncement, the financial year was kind of already gone. It's halfway. And, government organizes itself in one annual calendar. So the financial year starts in July. So the engagement we've had with the National Treasury is around operationalize this from the new financial year. For now, do all the paperwork and be clear what you're going to do. So we're persuaded that come the beginning of the new financial year, we'll be operationalizing this startup funding program. But having said that, we also recognize the power of private sector. And we have a lot of VCs in this country. In fact, we had a debate, a very well-informed debate at the Innovation Week, whether there is sufficient funding to support our ideas. And a group of people were saying there isn't, and another group was saying there is. And surprisingly, the team that actually confirmed that there was sufficient funding won the debate, and they empirically won it. Now, what that means is that there's quite a lot of funding. The question might be, why are the people not getting that kind of funding? There are many cases we know of people who have attracted a lot of funding from private sector. We've got angel investors in Nairobi, for example, the NIBAN, which has a huge pool of angel investors. We've got VCs in the place and so forth. And we've got even the East Africa Venture Capital Association here in Nairobi. And the amount of money that they influence is sometimes mind-boggling. You almost think that that's not true. Now, capacitating the person who needs to access that money is part of the real work, so that then they have the skills and the exposure to make a case why they should receive a certain amount of money and how the investor is going to benefit out of it, because it was not a grant.
I also want to hear this. I mean, last year, at the same event, the Kenya Innovation Week, the president made a surprise move. He moved the Kenya from the Ministry of Sports, where it was placed, to the ministry, to the office of the president, which was seen as a major boost to the organization.
True.
What has changed since then?
Okay, first of all, thanks very much for bringing that up. The head of state in his wisdom felt that in order for us to harness the power of innovation, we need to think horizontal, not vertical. It's cross-cutting. Innovation is going to happen in different disciplines. You're going to need different skills. You're going to leverage technologies and ICT and markets, and different ministries will bring in different elements. So that was what really informed. Now, procedurally then, after you make such a pronouncement as a head of state, procedurally is that we expect an executive order. That's what operationalizes that move, okay? And the executive order is not out, largely because there is a lot of adjustments that are happening in government, and it will be out anytime. But nevertheless, you start operating knowing that you are in the office of the president. Okay, that's immediately he makes that pronouncement.
Have you moved from Westlands to Harambee House?
I have been to Harambee House many times as part of that transition.
But as an institution, have you moved?
Yes,
still there?
Conceptually we have moved.
Okay.
Our reporting lines have changed,
Okay.
Wonderful.
But many things change because then you're carrying a presidential responsibility. And in the way we conduct, the way we plan, the way we strategize, we have scaled the number of staff already. We are physically relocating, that's a fact. Come in the new month, April, we now are moving to a new location. So it's expanded and we have a bigger team and more space and so forth. But even our programs are now changing and expanding because you have to have that horizontal view and end to end. We are designing something we're calling a Kenya Global Innovation Agenda. Because we realized one thing, there are governments that have reached out to work with Kenya on innovation, and they probably work with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and you will see a partnership has been established with the Ministry of Education, another one with the Ministry of ICT, another one with the Ministry of Trade, and then there's this no centralized way of coordinating. That is part of what we are organizing ourselves to do. We've started harvesting data around investors across the globe who have an interest in this kind of markets, and so in a way, even the way we are running our Presidential Innovation Challenge and Award this year is actually an expansion. So we're beginning to scale and be a lot more presidential in the way we execute. A new initiative, for example, we've also set up is we are running the Kenya Startup Festival in June this year. So this is not something that we've held before. We're doing it for the first time, and we've reached out to Nordic countries, UK, we're working with the US, South Africa, expanding our reach of investors, and we're going to be rallying all of them together and ask not only showcase solutions like what innovators are working on, but also make it more attractive for investors to leverage this environment that we have. Another initiative we've put together now is a technology transfer office as a service, which is more of a national platform that will enable researchers and innovators to get the support they need from intellectual property management and exploitation to the legal services that come with it, to the mentorship and coaching. And that mentorship is not just local. We're thinking global. I mean, there's no reason why that gentleman in Australia cannot provide mentorship to this gentleman who is based in Kenya. If he wants to scale his thing globally, then he has to get that kind of mentorship. So we've changed the style.
I want to hear this from Professor Bashira. I mean, you represent the academia as well as the researchers. Dr. Tony Omwansa represents the policy makers and implementers of policies. And then we have Eli there, being at the end of the spectrum, representing the innovators who are supposed to be as a result of all what you do. And then we have another missing link on this show that we call the financiers, the venture capitals, and financial institutions. So when you bring those four institutions together, what do we need to do so that we can accelerate the rollout and the conceptualization of ideas that are innovative in nature?
Thank you very much, Brian. And allow me, first of all, to wait a little back on what you had said about youth participation in innovation and coming in to help in resolving the issues that we have in the country. I think for a very long time, we've been training our youth for the white-collar job. And in so doing, what we've not been doing, we've not been preparing them to be part of solutions. We've been preparing them to be part of creating a problem that we never knew it will come to this magnitude, where we have got a little big bloated youth who are unemployed. But with now the concept that we can be able to introduce learners at early age, as early as in primary or high school and at university, to issues of innovations and commercialization, it's now ballooning up and coming and bringing more youth to be able to participate in finding solutions to the problems that we have. And that's a big plus when we have such an agency as Kenya actually training the leadership of universities, as we're talking now, to be able to restructure the way we train our youth, introduce them to a way that they can be able to see a problem in the society, come back to the university or come back to the learning institution and design a solution that will be able to address the pain in the society. That, to me, is a very big plus. Now, back to your question of, or the issue that you're talking about, now bringing the four parties together. I think the most important thing is to create a link between the four. Because you can have the four, but there is no link that is able to link the four of them. And the most important thing is to be able to see that we are able to innovate, or we are able to create a solution that can be able to be moved into the market. And in so doing, the person who has the funds is able to see that I can be able to take that solution and now be able to make some money out of it. But if we don't have such links where we're able to see that we have got here the Kenya National Innovation Agency, which talks about policy, and then you've got the youth here, and then you've got the higher learning institutions, or the learning institution and the fund, and there are no links, then we are doing as much as nothing.
What kind of a link would you be talking about, and what architecture should it take?
I think the most important thing is to look at the policy.
The policy.
The policy where he comes in. And policy would be, I think, more of multi-approach in terms of enabling for access of funds, in terms of allowing, for example, the public sector also to come into the private enterprise and be able to function as private enterprises. I think the biggest problem we have in government enterprises, and especially in higher education institutions, is the bureaucracy in terms of how procurements and all those things are done. So if you are to invest, for example, in an enterprise, for example, in a university, what happens is that the cost of running an enterprise becomes so high that it cannot be commercially viable. So if you're able to have policy framework that allows a public sector, and especially education institution, to be able to have a business enterprise that operates commercially, then you're able to attract an investor.
I hear you talking about bureaucracy, and governments all over the world, you know, they run on bureaucracy.
Sure.
But sometimes you have unnecessary bureaucracy.
I love it.
Just the other day, we saw U.S. President Donald Trump talking about how government bureaucracy is delaying the development of the U.S. and, of course, major policies. And so when you talk about bureaucracy, because governments cannot operate without bureaucracy.
Oh, yes, sure.
But there is a way they can operate without a lot of bureaucracy. Where do you see the bureaucracy?
I think, first of all, we need to ask ourselves, where do we cut the line between the normal public procurement, the normal bureaucracy for the government institution to function, the necessary bureaucracy, as you call them, and that's which we can be able to remove for some of the functions to function like business enterprises. And that's where it comes in. If we're able to distinct the two, that for this to run, then this has to run like a business.
It has to run like a business.
But for the normal government operations to run, we still have to maintain the bureaucracy.
The bureaucracy, that's what we call the necessary bureaucracy. And unnecessary bureaucracy. Yes. I know you want to respond to this, but as you respond, Tony, and I agree with Prof here, you know, sometimes there is so much unnecessary bureaucracy in government. And in that process, technology, innovation is not waiting for anybody. And so then, as a policy maker, as a person who sits within the policy making spectrum, then how do we ensure that we cut down on the unnecessary bureaucracy so that if it is Ellie who has an idea that requires funding, that requires to be facilitated, it is done and dusted with in due time?
Thanks very much. That's a very, very good question for someone like me. The mandate of the Innovation Agency is to develop and manage the national system of innovation. Now, in that case, we are conscious that bureaucracy can be a reason why we don't move as fast. And the measure of success is jobs being created and wealth being created and startups emerging and so on and so forth. Now, government, as it were, will not run without bureaucracy. Why? Because we are a group of people and need to work together. We have thousands and thousands of people that need to work together. So you've got to create standards and rules and how things can have the necessary checks and balances. But let me take a classic example of a university. We know that innovations are not going to thrive in a bureaucratic environment. They need to be tested, they need to be validated, they need to move swiftly, and so on and so forth. And that's why we build technology transfer offices. So ideally, our pathway is to make sure that universities have an office that is insulated from the heavy bureaucratic processes that you have to go through. And we've helps institutions to set up innovation funds, which are also insulated in a way that they can operate a lot more dynamically. Now, technology transfer offices are useful for identifying technology from the researcher, pull it and quickly connect it with the market. Get partners, get funders, get legal services, and so on and so forth. That's why you have accelerators. That's why universities are expected to run incubation programs, because those environments insulate them from the unnecessary bureaucracy. In this case, it's not necessary for them. That's the point we're making. We even invite private sector and development partners to set up innovation hubs in institutions of higher learning, or even in the public, or in county government setup. And they have a more agile way of operating to test ideas quickly and decide whether they are moving on or not. So there are systems to enable innovations to thrive in such environments.
I want to hear this from Ellie. Dr. Tony says there are systems.
Yes.
Prof is saying that the systems sometimes they are slow because of government bureaucracy. How does that affect you as an innovator in terms of ensuring that your innovation goes into the market, it gets to commercialization level?
Okay, so I think I'll make this unique to my experience with the startup that I'm building.
Yeah.
So we work with persons with disability, which is a minority group. So of course there's some quality assurance, how is our software signing? Is it to the quality that we want? And who do we engage here? We map out, there's a Kenya Institute of Special Education, there's the National Council of Persons with Disabilities, there's the Kenya National Association for the Deaf. So you find that even before you enter to market, sometimes there's regulation, what kind of data are you collecting? Are you doing it responsibly, say for AI? And I think sometimes even as an entrepreneur, of course there would be bureaucracy, there would be things that would ideally say limit your speed to market.
Red tape.
But I think I come from a school of thought where I believe in breaking things. You've proven it's working, just get it done. And get it done, yeah.
You are recognized by the president for your innovation.
Yeah.
Take us through the kind of innovation that you're working on, and how is it going to deal with the challenges that we face as human beings?
Yeah, sure. So my startup is called Signverse. I'm not sure if my screen can be seen. I'll just quickly connect these to my
you can take us through it.
Okay. Which camera should I... Okay, so this is STAP 360. It's a software that ideally emulates that interpreter you're seeing on TV right now. And we've built it with the end goal in mind, where we are able to digitize any content to sign language, be it text, speech, documents, images. And how this works is just input text. I had already input there, then I'll just click interpret text, then it's able to pull, sign language motions from our database, and it's able to sign in real time. So we've also expanded this further, and we are able to as well deploy it on web pages where we can sign content on websites, And we've built this very closely with the deaf community. We are also able to, caption videos in sign language. You can see there's an interpreter down here. Yeah. So ideally, that's how the software works. And
help us understand,
yeah.
please. Like, for example, we have that lady,
yes.
Lucy Mwaura, who is our sign language interpreter.
Yes.
She's doing this business.
Yeah.
So how does this help her, and how does it connect with the people who have that kind of a challenge in terms of hearing and so forth?
Yeah. So the deaf community, their first language is sign language. Unless you, of course, were, say, born hearing, then you develop, hearing disability. That's you'd be comfortable reading captions or reading normal text. But looking at how even their word structure is, saying my name is Ellie, the interpreter would take that, put it into context, then compress it in the least amount of signing possible in Kenya Sign Language. So the word structure is very different from English, and Kenya Sign Language is as complex a language as Spanish, French is. So what we've done, we work very closely with our sign language interpreters, we work very closely with the deaf community, and we digitize what they sign. Then we now do it at scale. What I mean by that is we are able to now take text speech, glossify it. So glossifying is taking it from English to Kenya Sign Language. Then our avatar is able to sign the motions that we collected. And we use very special hardware systems. Actually, they are very unique, most likely only one of two in East, Central, and North Africa, which we invested from the investment received from PEER. Then we're able to capture sign language to like 90% plus accuracy, and that really matters for us. So this tool ideally enables the deaf community to communicate. So as a hearing person, you meet them, speak, type, it signs to them.
Does this system,
yeah.
Is it meant to replace what Lucy Mwaura is doing?
That would be controversial. I wouldn't say extremely.
Or can they work together? I mean,
yes, they can. So if you look at interpreters, I think their interpreting experience is limited to some vocabulary, and it could be in line with their expertise. So an interpreter, say, would be comfortable or like versatile with vocabulary in sciences, or one would be, versatile to vocabulary in health. So what this does, it's like 360 across all, right? And then we do have deaf people who prefer that human-to-human connection. So I generally don't think we would completely eliminate human interpreters, but we are bringing a tool that's 24-hour. To some extent, yes.
To some extent. Yeah. To what extent? 70%, 80%?
I cannot give a metric exactly, but I think you can tell, I think if you've looked in the recent past, Nelson Mandela's funeral, we had an interpreter who was interpreting, and it was just completely out of, context.
Yeah, there was a lot of controversy.
Yeah. And such can happen. Such can happen. You may find an interpreter who's versatile in vocabulary, like in a particular domain of science or like, conferences and the likes. So what this does ideally is we are guaranteeing that real-time accuracy interpretation. Then, there's fatigue. Humans need assistance as well.
What do you have, in mind? I mean, take us, if this technology was to be widespread, if it was embraced,
yes.
Even by broadcasting houses like KBC,
yes.
What would be the future of sign language interpreters?
The future of sign language interpreters. So, AI, in its nature, it's garbage in, garbage out. Like, it cannot produce whatever it's not taught, right? So we still do need that human, even in terms of data collection. But I genuinely think the future of interpretation is automation.
It's automation?
Yeah, it's automation.
So
interpreters on TV would only be available on news, right? If you're looking at other programs, it's rare to find, and I think I'd ask why. Probably it's more expensive, to have them 24 hours there. But this can be automated. And with the possibilities of automation, AI, motion capture, I think it's very possible to have it cut across.
If you had, let's say, for example, if you had a son,
yeah,
and he comes to you and tell you that he wants to pursue sign language interpreting,
Yes. Yeah.
at school,
Yeah.
what would you tell them, bearing in mind that you're developing this system?
I would be honest. I would say, of course, our tool can also teach them the same sign language because it doubles up as a versatile tool. But I think I would advise them to be versatile in terms of options. Of course, they can learn the language, but I would say I think we're getting into a place where we are forced to have multiple skills, and just to diversify your options on where, like career, opportunities that you can feed yourself into. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
If I had that kind of a son, in addition to that, I would
Yes.
say go study because that's where your passion is.
Yeah.
But stretch your thinking as to what and how you can leverage that sign language.
Yes.
You can be the person to actually develop more of these technologies so that they can serve more people. But don't look at it as that I'm going to study sign language and I will attend an event and translate. And that's it. So open up the thinking, and you can actually serve the whole world by linking technology to the services that you offer. And you can scale yourself that way.
Very well. I'll be coming back to you, but I just now want to turn to Prof. You came with a package here. This is not sugar. Let me have it.
It's not sugar, it's
This
crack
is not
sauce.
sugar. This is not a packet of punga, and this is not rice.
Yeah, sure.
This is something called Cracks Fox.
Cracks Fox.
I know the president talked about it in November last year.
Yeah, sure.
Tell us, what is it and how is it coming to fix some of the challenges that we have as a country?
Thank you, Brian, and I'm happy you're able to pronounce the name, and I'm taking it very serious that the name is a tongue twister for now. But as you've asked, one of the most important things to note is that all buildings under construction or constructed are prone to cracks. Be they structural cracks, or be they as a source of what we call aggressive attack, maybe the type of water you used in making your concrete, or perhaps even the type of sand, the type of ballast, or the type of cement that you used in construction may cause crack. And therefore, it becomes a bit difficult to be able to have solutions that every time there is a crack, you have either to do a little bit of cut your building and repair. To us, what we look at is, do we have a solution that if I'm doing my construction and I'm aware that my building at some point may crack, can I have a solution that will prevent that? And that is where Cracks Fox comes in. It comes that when you use it during your construction, that is, you mix with your aggregate, cement, sand, and water, it will prevent, number one, a crack from occurring. And then number two, it will give you what we call waterproof. In that, what I mean is that your structure or your concrete will not allow water, as we normally see.
To seep in.
Yes, to seep in. Ordinarily, for every construction in Kenya, be it that you're doing a normal house, be it you're doing a septic tank, be it you're doing a slab, be it you're doing the substructure, we use either water that is contaminated with salts.
That's where the problem is.
That's where the biggest problem is.
Is this product available in the market?
For now, no.
When do you plan to have it in the market?
In the next 4 months.
In the next 4 months?
Yes.
What is holding you back from having it in the market in the next two weeks?
Oh, thank you very much, Brad. I think, as we've said, the 4 partners that you are saying here, the finance.
Which partner is missing? The finance.
The finance.
Is it possible for Kenya to finance this kind of an innovation?
So I would be very happy we can say yes.
Where the technology has reached,
Yes.
he has received a lot of funding from the Innovation Agency. Like I said, it's not just funding, it is also the technical skills. Remember, he's a researcher, he's an academic, and he knows how to think through all the components that come together, test them, iterate, and so on and so forth. And we provided a lot of support to that, both skills as well as the funding support.
yes.
Now he's at a point where he's trying to scale. Now, government is normally not the best source of funding for scaling ideas. It's private sector. So government de-risks these ideas, demonstrates and proves that it's going to work, and we've done a very good job in that. But we still have a responsibility to connect him to the private sector that provides the funding.
Is there such a platform whereby government...
Yes. So this is why we design programs like Presidential Innovation Award Challenge, or we design a program like Research to Commercialization. So we do have a program, and he's getting into a new phase of a program, which is now going to open up in the global space of funders. And as an innovation agency, we've built a long database of private sector funders, and we are creating the platforms. You know, sometimes it's about convenings. We invite him to pitch, and he has to pitch to a set of funders. For example, in June, he's going to get an opportunity to pitch to a set of funders from multiple countries. So the answer is yes. And keeping in mind, when you have a ministry like Ministry of Trade and Investment, theirs is they think in terms of how do you grow the trade?
Yes, sure.
How do you facilitate investment? So as an innovation agency, we plug as well to the Ministry of Trade and Investment and leverage the infrastructure that they have to expose this kind of innovator more and more into that environment. So the answer is yes.
Gentlemen, because I can see we're almost coming to the tail end of this conversation, I want to hear this from you. Are there other innovators that you know out there, they're facing the same challenges of finances like you do, and what are you doing about it?
Thank you very much. There are many, as many as I do have students, because I'm a professor in the university. And what we're now trying to do is to, first of all, train them from coming from ideation to a product that is of business importance. The next thing is...
So ideation to commercialization.
Ideation to commercialization. The next thing is, as Tony said, is to be able to connect the innovators to the money, to the donors. And that is actually the case.
That is the elephant in the room.
That is the elephant in the room, but he's breaking the ice.
He's breaking that.
And he's already done it severally.
Ellie,
Yes.
as we wind up, I also want to hear this from you. I mean, you interact with so many young people in your space. What are the biggest challenges they face in terms of getting their innovations to the level of commercialization? And what do you discuss?
The biggest challenges that most young innovators get from idea to commercialization, one, I think it depends ideally on the sector or domain where you're building, like technology. There's that technical know-how, right? So mentorship comes in here, where programs like PEER bring in, experts in finance, experts in technology, to give you that oversight to enable you to ideally bridge the information gap to financing. So as you had mentioned, right?
Yes.
There's that initial seed financing that you get to, say, prototype or build that initial project,
Very
right?
good.
Then step two, how do you now get it from that to market? There is a lot of cost that comes in between. So let's say you're expanding your team. Yeah.
Very good. I mean, gentlemen, we have to come to the end of this conversation. It has been very interesting. And of course, you can be guaranteed that we'll have more time with you again because we have to wind it up.
Thank you for hosting us.
Thank you very much indeed. I mean, you have been watching Inside Government. We've been talking about harnessing technology and, of course, ensuring that we harness the innovation that we have. O'Brien Kimani is my name. Thank you very much indeed for watching. Asante.